Hi, Amanda. I promised you a response to your article, and I really wanted to give you one because it touched on so many things that resonate for me and what I've been going through with myself and my own career, and also with my missus and her playwriting career. And she's also English, um, of English descent, so this whole notion of reticence about self-promotion is baked into her DNA very much as well. There was a lot of uh, familiar aspects to your article. So, I grew up in the New York theater, and so promotion and razzle dazzle and all that kind of stuff was sort of baked into my DNA. It was just a necessary part of survival. Um, and then later on, when I was in high school, my high school band teacher taught me two great lessons. One was that if you don't blow your own horn, nobody's going to do it for you. And the other is put your money where your mouth is. So, I've had that kind of conditioning all through my all through my life. And actually, the fact of the matter is, and this comes from the business world, but I think it's true, that if you have something that's of value that you're trying to, share with the world, build an audience, what have you, if you don't market it properly, you're really doing it a disservice. You put all that effort into making this great thing, and if you don't, get it out and let people know about it, help it find its audience, then, you're really shortchanging it. There's that. I mean, the other part of that is that now we live in this world where people are just bombarded with 100,000 messages a day. It's just total saturation, total overstimulation. No wonder everybody's got ADD. So it's to the point now that really nobody is making an impact. I mean, U2 put out a new album. Did you know that? So, it's not just you. Nobody's making an impact. And part of that is also because of the political climate, frankly. Everybody's on edge, whether or not. I mean, it reminds me of the early Reagan years, where in 1984, that era where everybody just felt like they had a gun to their head 24 hours a day, the threat of nuclear annihilation at any moment. And the world being out of control, and people having, less and less control over their own lives and their own destiny. That, coupled with the fact of the massive income inequality that we now have, that everybody knows about, that there's this massive lump of money with the top 0.1% and everybody else down below. Nobody has any friggin' money. I submit to you that if the income inequality were not as bad as it is, piracy would not be as bad a problem, because people would be more inclined to pay for things if they had the money to pay for them. But so anyway, so in a world that is overwhelmed by messages and messaging and all like that, then the question becomes, well, what is rare and precious? And it's human emotion and contact and engagement. That's the word that Facebook uses. There's, with the dawn of the computer age, there's been this tendency to break everything down to ones and zeros, including human emotions. So, so what is rare, and what are your goals as a creative person? I mean, and this is true for books or music or movies or what have you, but there's the top slice, the majors, and then there's everybody else, right? And I can tell you from having worked with the majors that it's absolutely the case that they won't hire somebody unless they have 100,000 Twitter followers, or more. Nobody gets signed to a record deal anymore unless they come to the table ready to fund it themselves. They walk in with $10 million to pay for their own promotion, or they already had a career somewhere else and the label can leverage off of that, notoriety. Or they're just blowing up the underground and they have 100,000, 200,000, a million Twitter followers, a million YouTube views, and all that kind of stuff, and that's it. And anybody who doesn't fulfill those criteria, they're not even going to get heard. And when you're dealing at that kind of scale, it makes sense, because if you've got millions of dollars on the line, then you want to go with the surest bet you possibly can. So there's that. That's that world. And there's everybody else, which is all of us trying to be creative and either make a living at it or at least, I think actually, I mean, I can only speak for myself, and this is different and as unique an equation as every artist is individual and unique in and of themselves as a unique person and all. So you really have to find your own way, but the ingredients include, um, you know, it, most people I know who are artists, if they get any money, they put it right back into whatever it is they need to do for their own support system so that they can keep being creative. Um, so I think it's probably best to, as much as you can, try to decouple money from art because I don't think the two of them really help each other in any way at all. I mean, I'm reminded of that quote from Robert Heinlein, never teach a pig to sing because it wastes your time and it just annoys the pig. Well, it's kind of like never try to make money from art because it doesn't really, it just wastes your money and it annoys the art, you know. So you do have to keep feeding the beast. It's a constant thing. It's like putting gas in the car. And if you don't do it, then you slip underneath the radar. And it's really, I mean, there was one line that you had in there about promoting yourself until everybody is sick to death of you. That's really a misapprehension. It's not that. It's that people just don't have the bandwidth. They're busy with their own lives, especially if they're creative themselves, which everybody these days is creative in one way or another, or would like to be. Those important emotional connections of the heart, those one-to-one connections that you described, those really are the jewels of this whole thing. I think, if you keep at it, and persistence is a big part of it too, just keep at it. It's like Steve Jobs said, real artists ship. They just get it out the door, they just move on to the next one, just keep moving. And that persistence creates an energy, creates a momentum of its own. And, a following, drawing a following of people who are just into you and into what you're doing. Like I say, the right people will get it, but those are the right people. And you can find 1,000 people into anything on the internet. And that's, if you have a base of about 1,000 or 2,000 people, that's an audience that you can have a conversation with that's meaningful for you and for them. And that's much more enriching than doing it for 100,000 people and having a peripheral conversation. I've always maintained that the ideal scenario to me is being like a cult artist. Having just enough, infrastructure and momentum that you can just continue to be creative and continue to make stuff and put stuff out. And your audience may not be blockbuster, but they're all really into you, and they're all really into whatever it is that you're doing, and they'll support you no matter what. Not because this is a dangerous thing, because it's like, if you say to somebody, "I'll support you no matter what," that could be interpreted as your stuff could suck and I'll still support you, and that's not what they mean. They mean that I'm into what you're doing, and your stuff may be, you may try different things. It may be good or bad or indifferent or whatever, but that's all part of the process. And the total picture is the important thing. And I'm into that total picture. And there are artists I follow and support as best I can. You might want to look into patreon.com. I've started my own page there, and I've been woefully neglecting it, partly because I'm making a big change right now because I'm moving into a lot of VR stuff, and I have to ramp up my own skill set at the same time while I'm just trying to make stuff. So I have to learn all these new programming languages and all, which, I'll do. But there's only so many hours in a day, right? So, but there is no business like show business, and to be in it is a wonderful thing. And as I'm sure you feel, and all of us, creatively oriented people feel, it isn't really a choice. It's really a calling. You just kind of have to do it. So... But anyway, much love to you and all the Holmeses who I adore. Yeah, keep on keeping on. That's showbiz.